Happy Friday. This is Ifan from the Black Room. And over the last couple weeks, we had quite a few things dealing with all time lows and big voids. And so I wanted to go over just three options that you have in order to manage these plays and take profit when there's no clear reference point on the chart. Okay, so we'll start with this example here on the MHLD, which was gapping down. You had some support defined here, but now clearing all of it right on the 9th there. And this had traded in this price, but it was almost 10 years ago. So the relevance of that price is going to be pretty low. For the most part, we want to care about what is immediately to the left. And so in this case, there really was no reference point once it made new lows. And so it's not uncommon to run into that situation when you're playing a play gapping to all-time lows, all-time highs. So how do we know when to take profit? So the three things that I consider, depending on the situation, and there's one that I prefer more than the other three. The first is you can look to get out at any sign of trouble. So if it starts to, you get triggered in, it starts to work, but then at the first sign that it may reverse or you immediately start to trail, you can do that because you have no other reference point or target. You can look for an arbitrary R amount. So if you say, well, I'll just do it take it at 2 R's, 2 times what I risk. Or you can look for reversal times. So I do prefer the reversal times the most, while keeping in mind what R we are at. So I'm not going to use a reversal time. And let's just say, I think for simplicity of reversal times, lunch and like going into lunch, if we're talking about the morning, and then the last 30 minutes of the day, if we're talking about an afternoon play. Okay, there are other reversal times in between, like 11:15 is a big one because that's when the European markets close, and sometimes 2 o'clock, 2:15 is important because we might have FOMC. But for the most part, let's just say lunch for the morning and the final 30 minutes for the afternoon plays. Okay, so let's kind of test these with a few examples, and you can kind of get a feel for how they can work and how really is no clear-cut answer at which one is the best. So you kind of just have to know what your plan is, what your preference is, and kind of what weigh the benefits of those three options. All right, so if we look at this MHLD and we look at the way that it did this breakdown. Okay, so here is going to be the numbers just underneath this base, stop at the top of the base. Okay, that's going to be the setup. If you look to take, say, just 2 R's, you're going to get out at 520. All right, 520. And so that's still a pretty good play. Still a pretty good play. 2 R's is not bad. If you look to get out at the first sign of trouble, depending on how you want to do that, you may say, well, this bottoming tail may be a sign, so I would take it. Or I trail as soon as it breaks a previous 2-minute bars high, you get out here. Or if you're looking at reversal times, here's the first one, right? 30 minutes before the close. And then at the close. You kind of have to. So this is the example where you really can't go wrong, because as soon as it triggers, it just falls apart. This one, you would have to be really being too tight and looking for really small targets in order to kind of mess this up. So when it works like this, great. Everybody wins. Doesn't matter what kind of management plan, unless you're really just hit the button on accident. Should be a nice play, okay, on the MHLD. Let's look at the SWCH, also a short, and then we'll look at 2 longs. If we look at this monthly here, you can see that this is all of the price that the SWCH has ever traded at since it IPO'd. So it hasn't been around for all that long. So now when this is gapping down on the 14th, it's at all-time lows. It's never traded at this price before. And on the 1 minute, there was a breakdown after a attempt at breaking out that didn't follow through, based and broke down. Now at this time, I don't consider this a significant reversal time, 18 minutes after the open. So reversal time, really no reason to trail there. And as far as an R amount, you're maybe an R, depending on where you got filled, as it broke 1030. So 1 R is really not a big target. So in this case, the best scenario, or the option that you could have picked, is just get out at the first sign of trouble. It is tricky to do that because what happens is that you're playing these things into void where there's no other reference point, and theoretically it could go to zero. Likelihood's pretty low. And so you do want to play for the big targets. I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to voids in the first place. So in this case, that was really the best thing to do. Otherwise, it stops out. So that will happen too. And I think some people may just be more comfortable, especially if it's near the open, volatility is at its highest. They don't want to give back too much if something starts to work, and they don't really feel confident in that they have any target. That's understandable. I do think of the three, that is the one that I don't ever use. So, I am giving you an example here where that would have been the best choice in hindsight. But this, I think I'm fine with this stopping out because I was playing for bigger targets. All right, so let's take a look at a long. And this was the Ellison. Now this was interesting because did gap on this day, but I didn't play it on this day. Played it on the 15th, the next day. Why didn't I play it on the first day that it gapped? Was because after it gapped, it just came in. Selling. Okay, there's a buy setup there. Do I want to play this buy setup after it's shown me only weakness? No. I think you could have played it at the end of the day. It did give an idea. I didn't play it myself because I generally don't like these low of the day bases. But the next day we gapped up. Okay, and we cleared all of that selling that kept me out of it the day before. So now we have a much different scenario. We get some basing here, and then we clear that. So you either a buy setup on the 5 minute or a breakout on the 2 minute. Same thing, either way you want to cut it, it's the same price action there, whichever time frame you want to use. Okay, so this was an official call in the room, 2581 by 2550. If we look at the first, if we get in and we try to get out the first sign of trouble, you would get out here. I mean, depending on how you want to trail, what your method of trailing. This is why I generally don't like this, because this happens quite often where you get a pushback, but is it still in an uptrend? Yes. So I want to be in it as long as it's in an uptrend. Especially I have big void to play with, right? Looking at that daily, I'm clearing this red bar. Last time it was at this price, you can see base here for a couple months. Now, is it realistic that it's going to get all the way back up to $30? It isn't. So I need to have some kind of plan to be able to manage this and look for some kind of target. So that's why we have these targets that don't really come from the chart itself. All right, so we play the Ellison here. We take some initial targets on the way up, and that's just from considering we do have an hour and a half in the money. Okay, so we take some and then look for the rest as we kind of finish out the day here. Okay, I did want to look to maybe if we could get more to take some before lunch, because I am more focused to those reversal times to as opportunities to take profit. But as we were getting close to lunch, this came in instead. I said, fine, if it wants to pull back, we'll live through that. Okay. And so on the Ellison, however, so if we look at what happened on the Ellison, we already saw that if you just get out at the first sign of trouble, you're going to end up either small loss, maybe break even. You don't get anything. Okay. If you wait until 2 Rs, well, that's just about what you got here. So you pick an arbitrary R amount, sometimes that ends up being the high of the day. Okay, in this case, I was looking for an R amount, not 2 Rs, but enough that I felt rewarded from it, can reduce my exposure, right, and then manage the rest. The rest ended up, we let the rest go around here. There's a great opportunity to do an ad. I did give it to the room. It wasn't official, but that really helped this play work a lot better. So that if you play this ad on those new highs, take some more, and then you're pretty much locked in a winner and see whatever it can give. Okay, you can see it continued over the next few days. The bias was right? Even if this wasn't a home run, right? It's fine. It's a single. Turned out to be an okay play. Okay, and so in this case, if you're looking for 2 Rs, that's actually the option that would have worked the best. Okay, now let's take a look at the last example here, which is also a long, and that is the TRUE. So let's start by looking at what kind of void do we have. As this breaks out, as this is going to break through this resistance as well, which we didn't know at the time it would do that, but I liked this gap. The market was gapping down, so I know this is strong. So I'm anticipating we're going to get through that. Okay, now, is it reasonable to think that we're going to get to $15? Probably not. Okay, this void is way too big. All right, so we have to figure out a way to manage it. Okay, on this one, it was a 2-minute high-low right off the open. All right, right off the open. This was during last week's open house, so this was a called official for the open house attendees. We are in as it breaks 1190, and we put the stop at the low of the day. That is a 35-cent stop. Okay, now, as we are looking for a nice R amount, probably could take it here. It's pretty close to 2 Rs right up there. Okay, we took some as it kind of gave us the second retest. We got a reference point, took some, is up, again, kind of like an R&a-half, like the last example, the Ellison. If you waited for 2 Rs, you got it. Now, I took it here, knowing that we got this previous reference showing of resistance. And then, as I was on the mic, I said, I want to take some before lunch, right? We're talking about reversal times. As we get into lunch, a lot of the buying is going to end as people finish up the business that they needed to do in the morning. Okay, so that's the idea behind those reversal times, like going into lunch and going to the last 30 minutes of the day, is people need to wrap up their positions, wrap up whatever business they need to be done, and enter, exit, whatever positions they need to do by lunchtime or by the end of the day. So that's why we see those reversal times happen, right? So as I was on the mic and we were getting this nice move up, now you can at this point the play is the back half is approaching over 3 Rs. I said I want to take some before we get to lunch. Okay, so here you can see we're about 30 minutes out. So on the mic, and as soon as we got this pop, we said, let's go, let's take it, I'm out. So I think 13:35, right? Remember, we got in 11:90, 13:35 on the back half. Okay, and there's another 30 cents. I'm not too bothered by it, but you can see why, as lunch ends, what happens? You can see the momentum start to reverse, right? So even as we get into lunch, then you see it just starts to go sideways. The momentum is dying out. Now the momentum has reversed, okay? So in this example, now if we consider the other two, and we're not talking about reversal times, right? I already pointed out, if you want to just wait for 2 Rs, fine, you got it. That works okay on this one. If you get out at the first sign of trouble, you're going to be out here, right? You're going to get out and then see this bar immediately flip. So you can see on all of these examples, except for the second one, the SWCH, trailing immediately because you don't have a good target or you don't feel comfortable with the target is going to cause you to miss out on some big plays. So that's the one that I personally never use. Okay, but I like to use the other two. Now I simplified them into a 2 R target and a reversal time. You can also do what I did in these examples, which is kind of use a combination of them. As we reach a reversal time and it's up a decent amount, then that's probably a good time to protect, because as we approach that reversal time, the odds that it may reverse, go the other way, gets higher, right? And so you want to protect the money that you've already captured. Okay, And there is one other one that you could consider, which is to keep an eye on the market. Now, I don't use this one either, and I'll tell you why. And I think this true is a perfect example. Okay, you could say, well, if the market, I'm in this, I don't have reference point. If the market starts to come in, then I want to also use that as like a proxy as when my play might start to go against me, or my profit, I might start to give back profit. If we look at what happened on the day that the true was gapping up, and we look at what the Qs were doing on the 10th as well, what was the market doing? Gapping down. What was the market doing intraday as the true is making new highs? Right? Market's going down. So using the market as a proxy is not useful in this case. Right? True continue to make new highs. If this does reverse the move, that would only serve to help lift the true, right? And then we would have good market timing for reversal. So I try on as many plays as possible to look for plays that have relative strength and relative weakness to the market, that adds to the odds, gives you a little bit more room for error as well, so that if the market reverses, it's not going to cause your play to immediately fail. So that's why I don't use it. It doesn't really apply to a lot of the trades that I take. So the one that I use the most, and it's basically a combination, is the reversal time and the R amount. Because I'm not going to just say, well, we're into lunch, but this play is only up, I don't know, half an R, and therefore I just want to take it. Right, so I use a combination. Have I been rewarded as we approach this reversal time? If there's nothing to reverse at that reversal time, if I don't have anything to give back, really, then I'm not going to trail. So I try to use a combination of those. And those are just examples from the last week. Yeah, over the last week. So we saw a lot of that. And it's pretty typical because, especially, I try to pick on them as much as possible. The potential for void and the potential to have some nice big plays like this TRUE. So, I was glad that some people during the open house got a chance to play this and participate in a nice winner there. So if you perhaps missed out on the open house last week, then you can still check with T3 and see what promotions and events are up and coming. And I'd be happy to see you in the black room and maybe trade some voids together. All right. That'll do it for this video. Hope you all have a great weekend.